a crucial day in the race for 2020. The first in the nation primary is underway right now in New Hampshire. Take a look. Voters already lining up at the polls there, and the candidates are out. Pete Buttigieg showing up at one of those polling locations. And here's what we know about the race right now. The final polls show that Bernie Sanders is on top, Pete Buttigieg a strong number 2, Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden falling behind. And now Amy Klobuchar appears to be moving up after her strong debate performance on Friday. So here's the big X factor, though. Only half of New Hampshire voters say they have definitely made up their minds.
Yeah, and independents can vote in the New Hampshire primary. That's always changes things up as well. And thanks to New Hampshire tradition, the first results in this primary are already in. From the midnight votes in tiny Dixville Notch, already a surprise. Michael Bloomberg, who isn't even on the ballot in New Hampshire, won 3 of the 5 votes in that town, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. Amy Klobuchar winning in some other small towns up north. And our political team is spread out this morning across the Granite State. Mary Bruce starts us off at a polling station in Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, the first in the nation primary is now underway. Voting has just begun at this polling station behind me. In fact, we're waiting for Pete Buttigieg to arrive here any moment. The candidates this morning are out making one final pitch. Hoping to clinch a win, Bernie Sanders overnight with a rock concert rally before an energized young crowd.
Let us go forward. Let us have the largest voter turnout in the history of the New Hampshire primary. Let's win this thing. Let's transform America.
Sanders is leading the pack in New Hampshire polls, a state he won in 2016 by 22 points. But nipping at his heels, Pete Buttigieg, the former South Bend mayor who pulled off a strong finish in Iowa.
We cannot risk alienating Americans at this critical moment. And that's where I part ways with my friend Senator Sanders.
You mentioned Bernie Sanders and only Bernie Sanders. Do you see this as a two-person race now, and does that help you?
Well, I certainly think there's a very clear contrast between my approach and my friend Senator Sanders' approach. He's talking about either a revolution or a status quo, and there's nothing in between.
But Senator Amy Klobuchar is also on the rise after her breakout debate performance.
As you've probably heard, we're on a bit of a surge.
She's drawing her biggest numbers yet. In Exeter, New Hampshire, an overflow crowd peeking through the door.
If you are tired of the extremes and the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me. And I'm someone that's been able to knit together fired up Democratic base, plus independents, plus moderate Republicans.
Senator Elizabeth Warren is looking for a much-needed solid finish.
My first name is Sanders.
Sanders, nice to meet you.
You might say I'm Sanders for Warren.
Sanders for Warren, I love it.
Also fighting for every vote, the former Vice President Joe Biden.
I'm Joe. It's good to see you.
I know you're Joe.
Biden plummeting in a new national poll, the first time he's trailed Sanders.
Stick with me 24 more hours, and I promise you we're going to do just fine heading south and across this country. We're going to win this nomination.
And, George, that new national poll also shows that Michael Bloomberg is in third place at 15%. He didn't even campaign here in New Hampshire. Instead, he is spending millions of dollars on ads, building a huge organization with his sights set on those critical Super Tuesday states that are voting early next month. George, this polling shows that strategy may be working.
So far, it does appear to be working for Michael Bloomberg. And Mary, we have kind of an odd twist right here in New Hampshire. The votes in Iowa still haven't been officially counted. There's no final results in Iowa yet. Yet they don't expect any problems there in New Hampshire.
No, George, officials here are confident that they can avoid the turmoil that we saw in Iowa. This, of course, is a primary, so it's a very different system. Voters here are casting their ballots on paper. It's a familiar system with no new apps, so they are confident they can avoid any kinds of technical breakdowns here, George.
Old-fashioned can work. Okay, Mary, thanks very much. Let's bring in John Carl, our chief White House correspondent, also in Manchester this morning. And John, we're seeing President Trump's strategy at play. He was in Iowa before the caucuses, New Hampshire last night.
Yeah, he likes to take away some of the spotlight from the Democrats. And in the case of New Hampshire, George, this is a state that they think they can win. He lost 4 years ago by 2,736 votes. It was the closest, narrowest margin of any state that Trump lost. So this is part general election strategy.
And John, the New Hampshire primary usually winnows out candidates, gets candidates who have to drop out of the race. But all the top 5 on the Democratic side say they're going to go on no matter what. You've got Mike Bloomberg hanging out there for Super Tuesday as well. And that really does increase the chances that there will not be a nominee by the convention in July.
It does. Look, Bernie Sanders comes into this the leading candidate in New Hampshire. If he wins here, he is the clear front runner for the Democratic nomination. But George, that has a lot of Democrats, establishment Democrats, moderate Democrats, in a state of panic, but unclear who the alternative is. As Biden loses support, those votes don't go to Bernie Sanders, but they don't go to any one candidate. You see Bloomberg at 15%, as you mentioned, and you could have 3 or 4 other candidates going out of New Hampshire.
It's a real muddle. Okay, John, thanks very much. And we're going to have live coverage of the New Hampshire primary as the results come in tonight. I'll be anchoring, joined by our whole political team right here on ABC and ABC News Live. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.